Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Effective Expressions with your hosts, Robin Piper and Michael DeVito Jr. Get ready, people.
Oh
And
my
this
good.
is why we let you do the intro.
Oh man, if Michael or Bruce Buffer need to retire, you have a spot, man. You're totally great.
Hey, no one can see me, but people can hear me right now, and I think I actually am basing this voice off of my friend Noah, who is really good at doing the like movie trailer voice where it's like in theaters coming this summer. I mean, I'll take a crack at it. I like to do impressions, but like I am not very good at them. So my friends always tell me, but I always try to come back in and just practice them a little.
I motion to have Adam do our intros from now on because
From now on, we're making a motion. There's only two of us, so there's nobody to we both agree. So I guess
right.
it's okay.
Yeah, we could try
Oh my
doing some more
goodness. What?
creative stuff with that. I'm totally down.
Yeah. What is up, everybody? How's it going? We hope you're doing okay out there. Miss Robin, how are you?
I'm good, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing all right, man. I just saw my little cousin get married a minute ago, and it was a little bizarre because like COVID.
hmm
But they had a little wedding, and it was we got through it. So they're married now.
hmm
So all's well, all's well. I'm excited about today's conversation. And how are you doing? I feel like I haven't seen you since yesterday.
It's been so long. I'm good. I too am excited for today's conversation with Melanie Closs. She is the CEO of The Other Side, which is a performing arts program for girls. That gives them a space to be who they are. And the reason why I'm so excited is because I too am a theater girl who was fortunate to have that space. I had joined a theater camp when I was 10. I had that space to be who I was, and I feel like that theater camp really formed who I am today. Fun fact, I actually auditioned for Hamilton and The Lion King in 2016. So that was all due to being in the theater camp and finding myself and yada yada. So
Yes, Robin, that's what I wanted
That's
you to
so
mention.
cool. I didn't. I keep learning new things about you.
yep, I'm full of surprises.
I still keep catching myself realizing that when we were having that whole conversation about the love languages, and you're like so polar opposite me,
yeah.
and how like we haven't really physically worked together, so no one would have known.
hmm
That is so awesome. Yeah, so why don't we just like that was great. We had a hysterical laugh with Adam starting us off today.
yep.
And let's just jump right in. Let's talk with Sister Melanie.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Rock and roll.
I remember being that sixth grade girl and discovering that there are other people like me who don't fit in but want to fit in but kind of want their own individuality as well.
A lot of teachers who do take the time in their classroom for social and emotional development.
Hey, this is me, and maybe this is sort of swimming upstream in this particular career, and this is where I feel that I can do good.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Effective Expressions. I'm Robin Piper, and I'm here with my co-host, Michael DeVito Jr.
Hi.
Today, we have a wonderful episode planned for you. We are talking with Miss Melanie Closs. Michael, do you want to do an introduction?
Oh my goodness. I met Melanie in Tompkinsville Park, and we were sharing, like, sort of sharing a table. And that's so often how these beautiful partnerships begin and how conversations begin, I think, in our world. So we got to talking and we just sort of shared a few things and then jumped on a phone call that took many weeks to finally get to. And I was just so wowed by Melanie, your passion and the energy that you're bringing to the mission, which I will not spoil for our listeners and viewers. I'm going to let you do it the justice that it is deserved. And just to say that it's great to finally have this conversation with you. And who would have thought that I guess almost a year ago now, that this is how we would start this is how we would start having a meaningful relationship right here on Zoom. So
Amazing.
welcome. How are you? Tell us how you're doing.
I'm doing okay, Michael. Thank you so much, and thank you, Robin, so much for having me here. I'm really happy to be able to be on this platform and to connect with you. I'm feeling, every day right now feels like there's some catastrophe happening somewhere in the world. There's something going on politically. There's something going on personally. It feels like it takes extra work to really stay positive in a time like this, and I'm so inspired by other organizations like yours that are also continuing to stay positive. So thank you so much for having me.
Great. Yeah, indeed. Talking about the things that we've done as an organization to really ensure that everybody can take care of themselves enough so that when they are coming to work or showing up for whatever it is in whatever way that we go to work nowadays,
Hmm.
that everybody is of good spirit. And I think that's what's so interesting about the work that you're doing, and the way that you are connecting young people all over the world. Tell us about that.
Sure. So long before COVID, long before I even ever heard of Zoom, I was traveling in India and I visited a community that was in a very rural and poor community in Uttar Pradesh. And I visited a girls' school there. It's actually a whole NGO that helps to empower and educate girls in this region. And by educating the girls, it actually trickles out to improve the conditions and resources in the whole entire community. And I just thought it was a beautiful mission. It was a beautiful community. I had come from New York City. I'm from Brooklyn myself, and when I connected with these people in this community, I was just like so inspired and so amazed by how much we could relate to each other, even though we were from such different worlds and such different viewpoints and cultures. And the area where we could really connect and relate to each other was that we were women and girls, and there's some fundamental cultural global view about women and girls that and I'll also add gender non-binary people um, that doesn't give us as many opportunities. There's certain expectations put upon us, and even though those expectations may be really different, we were able to relate and connect in that way. So coming from my background is in theater education. I have always believed deeply that theater and performing arts are ways in which people can express themselves, people can build their confidence, and people can communicate and connect because it's really about feelings, learning how to express your feelings. Um, so I knew that there was something here with this community, something about gender equality, something about theater. And after many years of developing different ideas, working in different jobs, working all over the place, traveling some more. I that school, that community in India never left my heart, and I was able to build out this organization called The Other Side, which uses theater and technology to connect girls and gender diverse youth across cultures, building a sisterhood, building confidence, building community, and building empathy. And when we first were looking at this lockdown, and actually a Zoom call with Michael was one of the first like
That's
sort of
right.
Zoom lockdown
That's
meetings I
right.
ever had. I started to think about how important it is that we have these platforms and we have these ways to communicate with each other and share. And we have been using it for a long time. We, as an organization, have been valuing the importance of connecting across cultures using technology, this technology that we have at our fingertips. Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, we use a lot of Slack. I mean, there's so much out there, and there's so many ways in which we can connect with each other. And I think everyone started to really deeply value that and understand that once the lockdown started, and the whole entire world had to be locked in. So
Mm.
just finding ways to connect this platform has been super important, and it has also helped us because we've been able to continue to use it and have our girls continue with classes.
Great. Thank you for that overview and for really just sort of sharing how a trip somewhere can turn into a career. You know?
And it's took a lot of hard work. I mean, it's still a lot of work to build something like that. To build something which is international. We work in different communities in New York City, and we don't have an office, we don't have a building, so we're really an online organization. And also to work with a group in India, in actually two different cities in India. And also had a group in Kenya that isn't continuing at the moment, but we're still in contact with them. So building up something sort of from scratch that's totally international, it's hard. It's a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of dedication. And I'm
What
grateful for my team for helping. Sorry, yeah, go ahead, Ron.
what are the ages of the girls that you work with?
So, technically in our mission, we work with youth between the ages of 18 and 22, which is a huge age range. But most of our classes, like the sweet spot is usually between 12 and 18, so middle school and high school. Currently, the Zoom classes that we're doing are they're 14 to 18.
I am super interested in the work that you do. Like when I got the email from Michael and stuff like that, and I did my research, I was super excited to get to meet you because I myself am a theater girl,
Oh, awesome.
and I understand the value of sisterhood because I went to an all girls high school growing up.
Mm,
So I asked you the ages because I think it's super important to get to that sweet spot where they're growing and they're developing and really learning who they are so that they can express themselves. I always tell my
absolutely.
mom that one of the best things that she ever did for me was enrolling me in a theater camp when I was
Mm,
10. I stayed there until I was 18, and
nice.
it was really during those formative years that I figured out who I was and what I wanted to do with my life. So I think it's super important that we get girls
Mm,
uh, into theater, into a safe space where they can be themselves and not have the pressure of the world on them, not have to succumb to peer pressure and other things of that nature. So, like, I super, super duper commend you on all of the work that you're doing. It's really important.
thank you so much. Yeah, and I think about a lot. I think about myself when I was that age, when I was 12, 13. And I was so fixated on being myself and what that meant and finding my identity and finding my individuality. But at the same time, I wanted to be like everybody else. I wanted everyone to like me. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to fit in and stand out at the same time. And it's just the most confusing time. And then if you add all kinds of other factors into that, what kind of community you come from and expectations that are put upon you from your own family and culture, whatever kind of health crisis there might be going on in the world, what might be happening in your community. um, it's extremely, it's a hard time. It's a really hard time. And I think having a sisterhood, having this kind of family of people that you can just talk to, and it's not your parents and it's not your teacher, um, but there's still adults there in the room and also your friends, and people who aren't your friends but could become your friends. It's not therapy, but I think it has therapeutic, um, I think that it has some therapeutic things that it can really satisfy, um, for these girls, and even for anyone who participates. We have a lot of community events, so we invite people to come watch our performances. We have fundraisers, and we also have like special events and workshops that our supporters and donors can come to, and our board members can come to. So it's not just for the girls, but anyone who sort of touches this work, I think, feels moved by it because you can relate to when you were a kid, when you were in theater camp, when whatever it might have been for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember being in school and all of my classmates thought that I was the weird one, oh, that strict
Hmm.
girl. But then over the summer, I went and there were kids just like me. And I'm just like, oh, wow, I'm home. This is
Yep.
great.
I
I'm
know
So
that
not an
feeling
alien.
very well.
Absolutely. Um, when with your regarding your involvement with theater,
Hmm.
what is your specialty? Do you like to act? Do you like to sing? Do you like
Hmm.
to dance? Like, what is your favorite realm in that world?
Interesting. I haven't been asked that in a long time. That's a good one. So I when I was a kid, I was singing and acting were my things. Dancing, not so much. And I did all the musicals and I did all the plays and I was in every choir thing that there could be. And I started my own things, as much as I could fit into my schedule. And I also went to a musical theater camp. Um, and then there was a certain point where I realized the the joy and the the wider spread of teaching, where I started working. I was still in high school, but I was like giving singing lessons to kids that were younger than me. And I was babysitting and involved in a community theater where I ended up just naturally kind of helping all the little kids with their lines and their costumes and stuff like that. And so when it came time to apply for college, I knew that I wanted to be a theater teacher, which is unusual. I think a lot of people start out as a theater, as like an acting student, and then sometime throughout college, they say, "Oh, I think I want to be a teacher so I can have a job," when I graduate. Um, but I already knew that when I started college, and I found a program that specifically was a theater education program. So I would say, I have two answers to your question, a long way to answer it. One is teaching and devising theater. So there's something called devised theater or applied theater, where you're not taking like a Shakespeare script and developing something, but you're having the people who are in your class or in the group develop their own script based on their own lives or topics that are important to them. And then the other thing, which is more personal and less about the other side, is that I am a singer and I still do music and I still perform. I'm in a couple of different music projects, and it doesn't come into the other side too much, but it is a part of who I am, and everybody knows that. So, so that's there as well.
That's awesome.
So I'm going in like 7 different directions right now. And I almost feel like if I open up my mouth, I'm gonna not stop talking for 10 minutes. So just let me say that, like, so almost like excusing my behavior. So in listening to, just to sort of work backwards, in listening to your recognition or your realization of your your joy, and I think you even said that, they don't come to work from the vantage point that you came from, that you sort of realized, hey, this is me, and maybe this is sort of swimming upstream in this particular, you know, career, and this is where I feel that I can do good. And
Mm.
maybe that's just sort of like the way you're built. We're going to get to the fact that you're an accommodator in a little bit in the conflict management. Uh, so I'm sort of curious about that in terms of, you know, how is it for you doing this work in terms of, and not to put, any words in your mouth, but my sense in our conversations is you don't feel like you're working at all. You're just having a great time, And how do you use that
Mm.
in what you're doing, to encourage uh young uh young people to find that joy?
Yeah. Okay, so I think I want to answer that in a couple of different ways. So that when you asked me what kind of theater I like or where I sort of fit in the world of theater, and I told you that I love teaching. Um, I would say that as an executive director of a nonprofit organization, I'm doing a lot less actual teaching
Mm.
and theater than I originally thought I would be doing.
Oh yeah, I get it.
What I'm doing really is fundraising. At the end of the
Right.
day, that's really what I wake up and spend most of my time doing. And of course, managing the programs, driving the mission forward, working with our programs director and who is doing more of the teaching. Um, and sometimes it's hard. Sometimes when I'm doing budgets and when I'm doing grant proposals, those are things that don't come so naturally to me that I definitely have to do some training around to work work harder to really, to be successful in that. And I always tell people that what drives me to do that, what allows me to sit down and do the things that are not my top choice of what I want to spend my time doing, is the mission, and
Hmm.
is that joy that I know these girls get from the work that we're doing. And I was actually just thinking about that this week because I had a really busy week preparing for our annual fundraiser event, and of course focusing on ticket sites and links and and strategies around selling tickets. It got stressful, and then we had a class on Thursday, and I decided to come and stay for the whole class. And at the end of the class, I was just like, yeah, this is why I do it. This is it. These seeing these girls connect with each other, talk to each other, grow in their confidence, and I can literally see them grow in their confidence every time they come together. It allowed me to like end the call, open up those spreadsheets and get back into it and start calling donors and doing all of those things. And it's really if I think of it like I'm trying to raise money, then it's not fun. But if I think of it as I am building a community of people who are going to support this mission that I think is super important, I'm going to show everyone else how important it is, then that's what allows me to to get into it. I'm not really sure, maybe I didn't really answer your question, but
Yeah,
that's what it made me think of.
like sort of in a way you did. I mean, just from my own personal perspective, I went from being, you know, 2,500 kids, really cool uncle, to kind of
Uh-huh.
being a visiting professor. That's kind of how I think of myself now.
Yeah.
I get to kind of drop in every now and again, and so I completely get the reality that in your current role, that day to day has changed so much for you. And I think
Mhm.
what I'm hearing in sort of loudly is coming from my own spirit, where sometimes actually, yeah, this does feel like work. Yet
Yeah.
if I stop for even a minute and I think about any kid, like today, a young woman, Lauren Rucci, she graduated from college, and I'm looking at her college photographs, and I'm thinking, my girl, man, like
Yeah.
this is it right here. This is what it's all about, And so just to see her smiling face with after graduating the College of Staten Island, it just, I can do anything.
Yeah.
I can do anything after that. So, and I think that I think that we want to we want to follow those types of leaders. you know
Mm,
we want to follow leaders that are not just doing it because they have a bottom line. Rather, they're doing it because they've
right.
come from a place where it is their joy. And
Yeah.
my sense from our conversations, and even from what you just said a few moments ago, is absolutely that you get it. You get it. Everybody out there, you gotta do
Yeah.
that. Even if you're willing to do it for free, then you're good.
I mean, and I definitely did it. I do way more than what my paycheck is,
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
like that
exactly.
it's definitely a labor of love. And not to sound super cheesy, but I think that love and compassion is really at the heart of all of this. It's about self-love, about seeing these girls find their self-love. It's about compassion for each other. And with what's happening in the world right now, and honestly, it's always been struggles in the world. We need to put that compassion on overdrive. We need to compensate for this by giving extra if we can. If you have the capacity to do that. Some people, there's so much going on that you're just like, I can't even like pick up the phone to call somebody because I need to just take care of myself. But
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
feel like I'm okay, so I have to give. I have to do that because I can right now. So I don't know. That's my cheesy outlook.
It's funny that you bring up love, because I actually wanted to ask you about
Hmm.
your love language results. Were you familiar with the love languages before we gave you the quiz?
I had heard it maybe once before. Somebody had mentioned it, and I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting concept," but I hadn't really looked into it deeply.
So there are 5 love languages, and I sound like a broken record for everybody who's been keeping up with our podcasts. But there are 5 love languages. There's quality time, acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, and receiving gifts. Um, receiving gifts would be I express my love to you by giving you things, and it's not a matter of the material things. It's the thought that you thought of me. You saw that I had a hole in my sock, so you picked up a pair of socks from the store on the way home. Um, Quality time is uh, speaks for itself. Spending time with your partner, spending time with your family, your friends, yourself. Uh, or acts of service is doing something for someone. Physical touch, again, speaks for itself. The hugs, the kisses, the cuddles. And words of affirmation is when you speak positivity into someone and someone speaks positivity into you. So, that being said, can I guess your love language?
Sure.
I want to guess acts of service. And if not acts of service, I want to guess words of affirmation. But the way you're looking at me, I feel like I'm wrong.
I was actually kind of surprised with the results myself because I would have guessed those two things.
Mhm.
It was physical touch.
Really?
Yeah, and it's interesting because right now we're in such a physically isolated time, um, and so much of so much of what we've been doing in this organization is remote and is separated in that way, and we aren't physically together. But yeah, that was the results, and I think that it does make a lot of sense for me personally. If I'm upset, you can send me lots of affirming messages and give me advice and help me out, but if you give me a hug, that's going to definitely bring me to the next level faster, and I think, yeah, like hand holding or just touching it, it makes a huge difference. And I think that, when I'm in a classroom with kids, if you think about theater too, theater is something that actually touches upon many different multiple intelligences. If you're not familiar, there's a concept of everyone learning in a different way. And everyone kind of learns in all the ways, but some ways are stronger than others, kind of like these quizzes. And so there's kinesthetic, there's spatial learning, there's visual learning, there's verbal, there's musical learning, as auditory, all these different things. And theater is pretty magical because it actually touches upon so many of those things. But the kinesthetic, which is like touching something, feeling something in your hand, um, is very present in theater because there's connection. You do activities where you're holding hands, you're building something, touching each other, and I think that's super important. If we're talking about sisterhood, we're talking about connecting and community building. I think that there's something very powerful about physical touch. Although nowadays, I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon.
Do you remember your list? I know physical touch was at the top. Do you remember?
I don't, but I could pull it up really fast.
I mean, you don't have to. Do you remember what the last one was? Because I was going to
No.
ask, how do you? It's fine. I was going to ask how uh, your score on your love languages test relates to the work that you do.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I think that words of affirmation, was that one of them?
Hmm.
And the other one that you guessed was service,
Acts of service, yes.
acts of service. I think that those were up there, if I
Hmm.
recall. And I think that those are definitely central to our mission, helping each other and giving. I mean, the words of affirmation, I think that's probably the most aligned with what we do in our classes every day. It's people coming together and just saying, hey, I see you, you're doing great, what is it, what's your dream? Okay, you got this, I'm here for you, I support you, I love you, whatever it is. We're friends. And that goes a really, really long way. I believe that goes a hugely long way, which is why I would think that would have been high on my list. But yeah.
That's great. That's really great.
So when you were speaking earlier around the mission and the central thread, or I should say the central component is connecting,
Hmm.
uh, you know, basically young young women from around the world, essentially. Of course, it makes me think of having pen pals and
Hmm.
how, years ago you would write to, your pen pal, or maybe at one point there was an exchange program and you spent a little time, a few weeks over a break, and that type of thing. And
Hmm.
um, so yeah, I guess I was thinking about it from that frame because we've evolved as a society where it almost feels like, well, because of social media, and you can kind of have friends from anywhere, that we think we understand, what it may be like to live in another country,
Hmm.
or maybe we have some similarities, albeit just age or maybe a music group that we like.
Right.
um, and we really just sort of like miss the forest for the trees
Mm.
because we don't recognize just how, how maybe, um, uh, how our experiences can be so much, made so much richer by understanding, in a very specific way.
Hmm.
Um, so my sense of, the work is that, it's not just, and I guess that's the frame of my question is like sort of walk us through this process,
Hmm.
so that people understand that like this is not just, some uh, young women in New York, um, writing to some young women in India, that there's this complex of activities that play to the reality, which is we're the same and we're different, and we're going to do this and do this, we're going to create this together.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. Great. So first, I'll just say that we actually have a tagline, which is like pen pals, but with theater. So
Ah,
your pen pal
yes.
thing was on point. um, and but yeah, it's more than pen pals, and it's more than social media for sure. So we what we do, and I'm going to talk about kind of what we are doing now
Great.
given this current situation, and mention too that this evolves. Everything I'm going to say might change next semester. It has changed over time. We really evolve and update our curriculum and our approach every year because we get feedback from students, feedback from teachers. We see how it goes, and we improve upon it or change it. But how we're doing it right now is we have one group of girls from New York. They happen to all be from the Bronx, that meet on Zoom once a week. And then we have one group of girls that live in a village called Anupshar. It's that same place that I talked about before. They meet once a week. And both times we meet with a teacher who's based in New York City. And in India, there's a teacher and you talked earlier too about people being from those communities, having more authentic, understanding of what's going on there. So we have a teacher over there who also joins our class. And in each class, we explore different topics. And the point that we're up to right now is actually, I think, my favorite, which is when we start to really connect. Because it starts out with who are you, and what's important to you, and what are your dreams, and sort of building a safe space as a group before we connect with the other group first. So now we're to the point where we're connecting, and what we've done is we've had the girls in the Bronx created a series of questions that they wanted to ask of the girls in India
Mm,
to get to know them. So the questions were, for example, if I can remember them, how do you identify yourself? What is your community? What is your favorite part of your home? Um, how can you how can you like explain yourself in one word?
mm,
And then we had all the girls in India answer all these questions as if it was a monologue. So they answered the questions already, wrote it out, each answer, and then read the whole thing as a monologue. So we didn't hear the questions in between. And then the girls in the Bronx are going to do the same thing with the same questions. And we making little videos. And then we're going to show the videos to the other group. So they're getting to know each other on a level where they're asking each other the same questions. And it's not questions like, what's your favorite movie or what's your favorite food? There's a theory about culture and cultural competency, which presents the image of an iceberg. So, like, if you think of an iceberg, what's there on the top of the surface is like
Oh yeah.
clothes and food and games, right? That you learn about in kindergarten or something like that.
Sure.
When you go down to the deeper part of the iceberg, what's really underneath it all, there's things like eye contact and what does family mean to you and what's your spatial awareness and things like that that are much harder to just see on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's what we're going for is kind of understanding cultural competency, really. And we also have another activity that we're going to do soon, which is a cultural competency quiz. So the girls from the other group are going to answer a bunch of questions that are related to these same topics and then share them with each other. And then the very exciting part is when we actually get them all together in one Zoom call and they can actually meet each other and talk to each other. And we're going to be doing that soon as a movie night. This is new. This is a first time thing. So we're going to pick a movie and we're all going to get together and watch a movie together and talk about it as a group. So it'll be something fun and engaging and a way for the girls to actually connect and meet each other. And they've already seen these videos, so they've already learned a little bit of something about them and what interests them and what their home and their family is like. So that's what we're up to now. And then we do continue doing activities like this throughout the rest of the semester, and we talk about specific challenges that people face in their community because of who they are. So, for example, I'm a girl, therefore there's a lot of expectations for me to get married at a young age. Or I'm a girl, therefore I have to take care of all the younger siblings and do all the cooking and cleaning at home while my brothers go out and play sports. Um, and we use those challenges to build either a skit or a poem or a song or something creative or a drawing, depending on what the kid really likes to do. And then we put it all together into a showcase, which is open to the public. Anyone can come and watch the showcase at the end of the semester, and it'll be on Zoom. So I can also give you that information when the time comes if anyone wants to come and see it. Um, and that's also exciting for the girls because they've been building their community with each other. They've been sharing all of these ideas with each other, and then that final showcase is a way to, hey, people I don't know, this is a problem that I have. This is a problem that girls have in my community. This is something we need to pay attention to, and this is my dream. Can you help me achieve this dream? And that kind of giving that information, I think, is also very empowering for the girls to be able to tell that to a wider audience and other adults too.
I have a question from one theater girl to another. Was there, when you were doing more theater work instead of CEO work,
Yeah.
was there a role that you played that really resonated with you in a particular play, in a particular show, production?
Oh, you mean when I was acting?
Yeah.
Oh, that is like a good question. I haven't thought about that in a long time either. Okay, so I haven't done any acting actually since really since college. Did a couple of things after college. So let me think about it for a moment. Okay, so a theater experience that comes to mind that will always stand out for me is when I was in college. I actually did this show 6 times over the course of high school and college, but the college production was, I think, the best one. Is the show Hair. If anybody doesn't know Hair, it's a quintessential 1960s hippie musical, and it was actually the first rock musical that was on Broadway, and it was also one of the first musicals which was devised. So it was built in that same way that I was talking about, the kind of theater work that we do. So the voices of the people in the production put it together. It talks about the war, Vietnam War, and the resistance to the war and the draft evasion and hippie culture in the U.S. It also talks about race. It talks about relationships. It touches upon a lot of different topics that were really important to me at the time, and I felt that it spoke to me because it was talking about real issues that even though had happened, 30 years earlier, it was still so relevant to what's going on now. And it wasn't a um lighthearted romantic story, which is great. I love those musicals too. But at the time, I wanted something more real and something more relevant to what's going on socially. And I was a tribe member. It was called a tribe member. And so I didn't have like a name or a role necessarily, which I think also speaks a lot to when you ask me what's your favorite role you ever played. I talk more about the collective group experience rather than the role I played. Um, so I think that was that experience of putting together that production, learning all the music, doing all of the work around it, built really building a family and a community within the whole ensemble, because it's a very ensemble driven show. I think that was my favorite one.
Your story reminds me of an experience that I had when I was 15. I was in a production of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown,
Mm.
and I played the little redheaded girl, i.e., ensemble.
Okay.
But we were singing the ending song, "Happiness." I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but
Yeah.
one of the lines in the song was, "Happiness is anyone or anything at all that is loved by you." And I remember when we were rehearsing it, I literally like burst into tears, and everybody's like, "What's wrong with this girl?"
Oh.
But I realized, like, you are responsible for your own happiness. You are responsible for the things that make you happy, and what makes you happy is not dictated by anything or anyone else. It's anything and anyone at all that's loved by you. And I just felt all the
Mm.
feels and the fuzzies, and
Mm.
you know, again,
Yes.
15-year-old hormones.
Yeah.
it's I love those experiences where you realize, this is why I'm here. This is why I do what I do, because it makes me feel such joy and such power. And I think that's really important for these girls that you're working with, to
Mm.
have that same feeling and to have those same experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
Mhm.
that's and like just to think about a 15-year-old girl in a moment like that where suddenly she realizes this is what love is. Oh, and you
Mhm.
get that from theater,
Yeah.
and that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that story.
Oh, you guys or gals. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Robin, you're amazing. You always make
I
me
try.
smile so big. I have I was thinking of this actually I don't even know at what point, but I think sort of both of you made me this started to crystallize for me. And maybe it's more relevant than ever given the state of the world and the challenges that we're facing with political divides and just ideology and the challenges of sort of like the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer and um, just sort of helping young people, um, you know, feel empowered and to help young people to recognize that their anger or their disappointment, um, their sadness is okay, you know, and that it takes, I would imagine, in your in your work, because of the element of art, the theater, that there are ways in which you're helping young people sort of contend with the heaviness of feeling conflicted. So
Mhm.
how do you do that? And how do you use the arts to do that? And then how do you maybe do it for yourself, sort of as an
Mm.
accommodator, someone who is like ready to make everybody else happy before you go
Yeah.
ahead, you can win the argument. How do you contend with it?
Can you ask the question one more time in a slightly different way, just so I can get it
Yeah, sure, sure, sure. I
answer
guess
it
you had me
properly?
thinking, as you were sort of talking through the way that um, the way that the programs are conducted,
Mhm.
and the sort of interviewing, and then that interview turns into a monologue, and I can imagine that that there's pain in all of that.
Mm.
There's disenchantment. There's lots of negative feelings that they're trying to tether themselves to something positive in this space and they're also vulnerable. And I know that in our experience at NICED, when young people trust you, they will tell you their deepest, darkest. So I guess I'm just kind of curious of how does this connection that you're helping young people make create space
Mm,
for that sort of conflict to be addressed,
yeah,
and how do
it's kind
you
of why I
as
do
as
it.
a person sort of help them address it.
Yeah. I'll tell you a story to answer that question. We
Cool.
had a class a couple of weeks ago. It's the beginning of the school year now in New York City, and there were two girls in the class. It was still on Zoom, and our lead teacher was talking about what's your community, and we were kind of defining community as a group. And eventually the teacher started getting into, even the other side is a community. We are a community of, you know, women and gender non-binary people who can connect and support each other, and we're a family, and we can tell each other things that maybe we can't tell other people, and that this is a space where we can really feel connected as a community. And they were talking about that. As they were talking, one of the girls started crying, and we basically stopped the lesson and addressed what was going on. And she wasn't really able to explain it. And but her friend who was there in the class knew about the situation. So we said to her, "Is it okay with you if your friend tells us what's going on?" And she said, "Yes." She kept saying, "I can't explain it, but I want to talk about it." It wasn't like she
Mm,
didn't want to talk about it. So then her friend explained a little bit about it, and we also tried a couple different things. So, do you want to write it in the chat box instead of saying it out loud? So she did that, and without getting into the details, she's got something going on at home, and she doesn't feel like she can talk to her mom about that situation. So she doesn't, and she's alone. She's not going to school; it's all remote. She's at a new school, so she doesn't know anybody,
mm,
and she wasn't she's sitting with this problem and isn't able to talk to anybody about it. And so we said, this is a place where you can always talk to us. You can always reach out to us privately, or we can talk about it here in class. This is a place where and this was coming from both me and the teacher, because we were both there, you know, that we're here for you, and we're going to support you with whatever you need. And so she has been able to really open up, and she was pretty closed off in the beginning of class too, but since that day she's been coming consistently, opening up, talking about what's going on. She hasn't talked about this issue again, but she's definitely seemed to kind of like feel more comfortable in her own skin just being in the class and talking to us.
mm.
Um, it's something that's there that we're aware of, and we're checking in with her. It's also something that she told us that there's another adult that's also handling the issue, so it's also
Mm.
not something that we have to take major responsibility for. Um, but just the fact that she had a space that she could where she could talk about this, and she wasn't sure. She didn't know if this was a place where she could, until the teacher explained and identified that this is a community where we can talk about our problems and we can support each other. And so I think actually we do podcasts as well. And we're going to be doing a podcast where we have one girl from New York and one girl from India have a conversation with each other.
Oh, that's great.
And that girl will be a part of that podcast, I hope, along with one of our girls from India. And so I'm just proud of her that she's coming through, she's coming forward, she's able to talk about it and not just holding it inside. And
Mm.
we've also been kind of brainstorming with her on how she can connect with friends at school, even though she's not in school physically. How can she really connect with other kids who are there when they don't have that like recess time, that lunch time, that kind of thing?
Yeah, yeah. What's so crazy in these times are that you're mentioning this space, you know,
Mm,
and space is really time.
yes.
And
Yeah.
we have systems that don't allow for space to occur, because they don't have time. So they, they have a way in which they would address something like that, which, you know, 9 times out of 10 is not going to be anywhere near the kind of compassion
Mm,
and willingness to take the time that, that you can at the other side, and that,
yeah.
other nonprofits spend spend decades creating that space,
Mm,
and I guess I sort of surfaced that in terms of, for those that are out there sort of thinking about where they give money to,
mm,
and what they're going to give money to, and that, we're all being faced with this reality of we're going to have to do more with less.
mhm.
And it was like, weren't we already doing that? I kind of felt like we were already doing that.
Yeah.
You know, and so we are in this place where, that young person every young person needs that space, and
Mhm.
needs that time, needs that person. And, we're not going to stop ever. At least I don't think so. And I'm a pretty altruistic dude, we're never going to stop and actually just true the wheel and fix the system,
Mhm.
that's not going to happen. So we make these choices as a society to put, resources towards, um at a new low price, we put resources towards, organizations like yours, that allow for that to happen in a way where, that young person, most
Mhm.
likely when she looks back at somebody who really, cared about her, she's going to think of the two of you, and she'll probably pay that forward, or she'll be that person for someone else.
Yeah.
And, so if we really just sort of like lined up the ducks, and we counted the number of times that programs like you have at the other side succeeded, or at Nice had succeeded,
Mhm.
compared to the way that somebody said, yeah, that one guidance counselor at so and so school, was the only one that really cared about me. And,
Yeah.
I'm not giving guidance counselors a bad rap here, because they're overworked, and they're,
Yeah.
they're put in positions where they aren't allowed to maybe do
Mhm.
that work. So it's just sort of like, to put that out there, I thank you, for the fact that you give of yourself, and that you're being present for young people in this way, because
Thank
we
you.
we all
Yeah.
be out there doing that in some way.
And I was thinking about that, like, and we've said this to the girls, that right now teachers, and I think there's a lot of teachers, I have a lot of friends who are teachers. There are a lot of teachers who do take the time in their classroom for social and emotional development beyond whatever math, science, English they have to get done. They care about that. I think there are lots of teachers who do that. But right now, I don't think teachers have the bandwidth or the capacity to even think about that, because they just need to figure out how to teach on Zoom and in a classroom at the same time with a
Right.
mask and everybody's 6 feet apart. And like, I can't imagine the teachers are can even think about that next step, And
Absolutely.
I think that organizations like the Other Side and NICED and probably many other ones too, that focus on this sort of enrichment and social and emotional development are so crucial right now, because kids like that girl literally have nowhere to just feel,
Mm,
to just have her feelings be heard and be validated. And she can call her friends, but they're going to also have feelings, and it might be hard for them to hear hers and to understand and to like really be a something stable for her. And I think that something like the Other Side is a stable space for these girls.
sure.
I think the work that you do, Melanie, is super duper important. And I
Thank you.
thank you for the work that you do. I thank you for taking the time to be on this call with us to really delve into the importance of your work and the passion for your work. And like I said, I remember being that sixth grade girl and discovering that there are other people like me who don't fit in but want to fit in but kind of want their own individuality as well.
Hmm.
It's just a breath of fresh air.
Thank you
programs
so
like this.
much.
And these programs need to be funded. These programs need to be implemented all over New York, all over the country, and all over the world, you know. And I think that it's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you so much. And I think we would have definitely been friends if we were in school at the same time, because we would have been in the shows together. Um, but I really appreciate all of the, all of your support, and anyone who's listening and feels moved by this, like, that's real, that's there, and we can do this. We can get through this, and we can do this together. And I think just stay grounded in your compassion and your love, because that's what we can do to move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for spending the time with us. And we'll see you out there or in
Yes,
here
or in
or
time,
over there.
in space time.
Yeah. We'll see you on the other side.
Yes, on the other side. A lot of
There you
people have
go. There
been
you go.
saying that lately. You can check out our website. It's theothersidenyc.org, where we have information about what's going on. And I'll just shout out our annual fundraiser. It's called Winterfest, and that's happening on December 3rd. We just started selling tickets. It's going to be virtual. There'll be DJs and a dance party and some music, and you'll get to meet one of our students. It'll be really fun. So if anyone's interested in joining, that is a great way to support the work that we're doing and also join our community. Thank you.
All of the
Absolutely.
information that she just mentioned will be linked to our video, so feel free to click here, wherever it is.
It's everywhere.
Yep.
Adam will do it. Adam will, he'll be like,
Down
"Do
below."
whatever," and it'll be fine. And everything will be fine.
Excellent. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, everybody.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, sister. Be well.
What a great conversation with Miss Melanie Closs. How do you feel, Michael?
I love her. You know, I was standing next to her for when she first showed up at the park. It was Council Member Debbie Rose's annual event that she does. She does a huge resource fair, and Melanie sort of kind of came up, and she was coming from the ferry, and it was all like, on the quick, and she was by herself, and she was setting up, and she was trying to grab things, and we were just sort of helped each other out. And like for a minute, you're sort of like you're talking, and you don't really like sort of know one another, and when you're standing next to someone, and you're like, man, who is this? I know I'm gonna dig this person right here. You know what I mean? So that was totally where where I was. And as I was saying, it just takes some time to sort of really connect. And we were connecting sort of right when we sort of fell off, and then when we started to talk, it was right when COVID was starting. So to learn that everything is sort of evened out for her is fantastic. She really had me thinking though about the the way that the way that when I guess I'm saying this because I lived overseas, and having lived overseas for so long, and sort of recognizing that you don't even realize you don't it's like sort of cliche to say, but you don't know what you don't know. And then so to then be exposed, and often young people, and I think it's like kind of New Yorkers, man, we all got a chip on our shoulder, you know what I mean? So I even think like New Yorkers, kids from New York, even though they haven't gone anywhere, like really gone anywhere, they kind of feel like, yo, I know what the hell's going on, I know the world, because I'm a New Yorker.
Right.
So I guess I was sort of connecting in that way, thinking about how much I learned when I went overseas, and like fell in love with the culture, and really just, who would have thought that a kid from Staten Island would have been in Okinawa, Japan, you know, speaking Japanese and getting a degree in Asian philosophy. Like, what the hell is that all about? So it was kind of cool. Like I was feeling what she was saying from my own experience, and to think that she's creating that space for on two continents is amazing.
Agreed. I think that talking to Melanie really brought up experiences in the both of us. For you, your experiences overseas. For me, uh, experiences of me being younger. Again, like I mentioned, that kid that just wanted to fit in and stuff like that. And I didn't really realize that every girl goes through the same things. I want to fit in, but I want to be myself. I don't know where I'm supposed to be, so on and so forth. And the fact that she created that space is amazing. And especially for girls that are overseas that might not ever have that opportunity. I think that's wonderful what she's doing.
Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah, cool. So check us out, everybody, on Facey Space and the Instagrammy, and we're doing a meditation now on Instagram. I got my face in there, regardless of how I look. I don't even care. Like, just what's up. And I coming in after my run, and all is well. But we're on Facey Space and the Tweety Tweets at NYCID NYCID, and we're on Instagram and the Tickety Talk at NYCID underscore improves lives, and follow us and look down below at all the information that we're sharing, because our professor Adam is the bee's knees. He's got this whole thing figured out and he's only getting better. Like every single time I talk to Adam, I'm like, my dude is like meditating on social media platforms and figuring out how to be a more effective communicator. So we love him deeply. Bro, we love you. And we'll see you next time.
Join us next week. We can't wait to have another conversation with you guys.